Danielson, we have a package. Hello?
No matter where you are, the Sloman Shield home security system guards your home. With next-gen perimeter protection, 24/7 monitoring, and interior motion sensing. And right now, get a free Sloman Shield security system and doorbell camera, all professionally installed, for free.
Shield your world, the Sloman Shield.
There's no need to drive around South Florida wasting valuable time looking for a new or certified pre-owned Acura. Go to the #1 volume sales dealership in the Southeast United States. Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines. Purchase with pace and space in a dealership tailored to your needs. From home buying to providing that personal touch. Contact the 2020 Satisfaction Award winner Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines. 888-776-5123. That's 888-776-5123. Or visit them at 15601 Pines Boulevard in Pembroke Pines. If you're a Miami sports fan, then there's only one store to go to, and that's Caneswear at Miami Fanwear in Davie. They're your one-stop shop for all your inner Miami CF, Canes, Dolphins, Panthers, and Marlins merchandise. They have hats, t-shirts, game day jerseys, and so much more. Located at 2511 South University Drive in Davie, and open 24/7 online at caneswear.com or innermiamiwear.com. Call them at 954-835-5597. Caneswear, the spot where Inner Miami and all Miami sports fans shop.
All right, we are live. It is the Squared Circle Digest. I am Sean Stanley, and we will talk wrestling for the next 30 minutes or so. C-Man's going to join me here in a little bit. Very exciting Raw last night. I thought it interesting that I saw on Twitter today. One of the questions, and Triple H now has put it's basically Triple H's vision of his WWE. And one of the things that was interesting and was kind of brought up was the diehard WWE Raw fans or diehard SmackDown fans. Like, this is not the same Raw and SmackDowns that you're used to. For instance, last night, I mean, it started with another brawl. The fireworks are going off. All of a sudden, it's Riddle, it's Seth Rollins, and they're fighting in the back. And then that finishes up. And then who do they bring out? Trish Stratus. It's another thing WWE is doing. They're in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. You bring out Trish Stratus. Next week, they're in Philadelphia. You bring out Kurt Angle. So now you're mixing a little bit of the past in with the present. And as you saw on Raw this Monday night, Johnny Gargano has rejoined to WWE, and he is now with Raw, apparently. So you're getting some surprises as well. But again, this is not, Vince McMahon's WWE anymore. And I was wondering, because it was brought up by a few people on Twitter, is this WWE going to be so different that everybody that's grown up on the WWE side of things starts looking at it as a totally different product? Do they start looking at it as, again, Vince McMahon's vision of WWE was, larger than life. Triple H's view is more of what wrestling is today. More athleticism, more, the smaller guys, the guys that you still got your giants, still got your, larger than life guys. You got those guys there, but it's the athleticism. It's the Adam Coles. It's the Young Bucks. It's Ciampa. It's, Gargano. It's Theory. It's Bobby Lashley. It's those guys when you're thinking about it. So when you're watching it, if you've been watching Raw for, a long length of time, when you're watching what you're seeing on WWE Raw right now, do you like the current product? Frankie Fresco, what's up, my man? Do you like the product that you're seeing that Triple H is putting out in front of you? If you've been watching Raw all this time, you brought up on Vince McMahon's Raw and everything else. Are you enjoying this vision of what Triple H is bringing out. And Terry brought up another one there too. The Dexter Loomis storyline is fantastic. They did it last night where you thought he was attacking AJ Styles. It was somebody else. I don't know if that's going to figure into the storyline as they go along, but we'll have to see there. But then all of a sudden, Dexter Loomis stands up on the other side, takes off the helmet, gets the Loomis choke in on the Miz, and just drags him away. I thought again, man, it's refreshing, you know what I'm saying? It's new storylines. It's new, you know, Gargano comes back, Theory comes back. You think they're going to bring the way back together. Gargano kicks him in the face. And now, you know, again, another fresh matchup is set. You know, Dexter Loomis, the Miz, that can be a whole nother, you know, fresh set. Ciampa, you can start putting him with anybody. You're starting to see, you know, guys get a chance. KO with the big, you know, I guess not really a character change, but more of a baby face. But again, they're in Canada. Everything seemed different. If you watch SmackDown, which was in Quebec, I mean, Sami Zayn was, I mean, heaven forbid. I wish I could get, you know, a thousandth of what he got when he came out on that Friday night. And Kevin Owens got it last night. So no squash matches, Steve Chapman. Thank you for joining in on the show. Yeah, no squash matches, actually. I don't think they had any. It was a pretty good card. I mean, they focused a lot on the women at the beginning of the night, and then you know, the Gargano surprise. Then it was the Edge, you know, return to Toronto in over a decade, or 9 years, I think it was. Not really a decade, a little bit both before. The interesting thing they're doing there too is they're probably going to give us a dream matchup, right? Rhea Ripley and Beth Phoenix. That's pretty badass matchup when you look at it, because Rhea Ripley and the Judgment Day, you know, again, they almost went at it, you know, last night. Very interested to see what they do with the whole Rhea Ripley and Beth Phoenix, because it'll be very interesting to see those two hook it up. Anthony asks, do I like UFC? Yes, I do. I used to follow it a lot more, but I watch the fight nights and the things like that. I don't really order the pay-per-views and things like that, but I do follow it. I wouldn't say that I'm, you know, can answer everything on it, but I do follow it enough to where I could discuss a couple things. Why does Raw keep doing these backstage brawls? Getting old already? No, but what a lot of it is doing, though, Frankie, is if you're watching behind the scenes, it's playing out other stuff. For instance, last night, when Aaliyah was confronted by Bailey, if you're watching that, you see Adam Pearce walking up with two security guards. And if you look down and they show the picture real quick, it's Dexter Loomis who they're looking for. You know, the other time when they were showing the parking lot, there was a wrecked car there. That's, you know, they're showing little things, you know, by going to the backstage things again, but also it's to start to show off with a little bit of something, you know. I mean, for instance, on SmackDown, they pull up and it's Roman Reigns, you know, pulling in as they're taking Ronda Rousey out in the police car. It's little things like that it's just to get the live crowd more energetic too. Because again, if you go to a live taping for like the 2 minutes leading into it, it's the announcer in the ring saying, "We're going live in 2 minutes on the USA Network." And then you're sitting there and you're like, da 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 da. Going live in 1 minute, and you're just sitting on your hands the whole time. They do the countdown. They start getting the cameras going. The lights are flickering. All of a sudden, the pyro goes off, and you start going a little bit, you know, a little bit crazy. The crowd does. So it's one of those things. It's just really to get the crowd going. And you know what I found interesting yesterday? I was reading a report, and WWE wanted to go to TV 14 so they wouldn't have to mute down some of the crowd chants. Because, of course, sometimes crowds try to take over And because they are, I think they're PG. I believe they're PG. They can't have some of those chants on their rating. So it's going to be interesting to see if they do get the TV 14. Let's see. King was just in AEW Dark, and tomorrow she fights D&D. Yeah, no. Kylan King has been around AEW for a while. She was with Cody when during the COVID situation. It was her and Red Velvet. So she has an in there in AEW, and she's a freaking hell of a performer, and she can go. So I think, again, it's one of those things where they don't have to sign her to a contract, but she'll be around the AEW a lot more than not. She'll probably do some darks and things like that, and you may see her become all elite. We'll see. Terry says, I think Triple H is doing a great job of giving us new and exciting storylines. Yeah, no, that's the one thing too, is like, again, we talked about it a little bit last week. You can't just come in and be like, in 1 week and be like, what you watched last week doesn't exist. Here's all the new stuff. You've got to roll with some of the punches that you had. And then also remember, the finish line is always WrestleMania. They kind of got the year planned out on feuds and certain storylines that they want to play out to get to WrestleMania. Your finish line is WrestleMania. Now, how they get there can change, but they ultimately want to get to, these are the matches that we want to have at WrestleMania. If they have, a set idea of what they want on the card. So they still have to get there. So they can't necessarily wipe the slate clean, but they can throw some energy into it. They can throw, some curves into it, some detours, shall we say, to get to maybe what the final outcome for WrestleMania will be. Steve says, to answer your question, I'm enjoying WWE more since Vince has been gone. Yeah, I think, honestly, man, it was interesting because, like I said, when I saw that on Twitter, I was like, there's a few people that are like, I don't like the new WWE or Triple H's WWE. I find it refreshing, man. I really do, man. I'm not about, it's not like I'm a WWE diehard. I'm not an AEW diehard. I'm a pro wrestling diehard. I love pro wrestling. And I love all the different styles of pro wrestling. When I wrestled, would I be doing the flips? Hell no. I'm more of the ground and pound type wrestler and the submission style and things like that. But did I take anything away from the guys that could do a flip just because they were, 5'11" and 160 pounds? Hell no. Wrestlers come in all shapes and sizes now. That's the other thing, man. It's entertainment. Do I wish some of the flipping and the flopping would make more sense in said stories, maybe in the ring, when there's storytelling in the ring in the matches? Yeah, I do. I don't like, 12 super kicks, a guy getting dropped on his head 15 times and then kicking out at one. It just, some things just, again, I get it. It's sports entertainment. It's choreographed. The ending's predetermined. But man, don't necessarily insult the intelligence of your wrestling fan and just be like, I'm a superhero. You know what I'm saying? So that's one of the things that I kind of have an issue sometimes with. Not trying to F with what you're doing, but why not change your video name so you can get more views? This here is gold and more people need to see. Change the video name as far as what, the Squared Circle Digest name, Anthony? And not, you're not effing with what I'm doing. So just let me back up, Anthony. Let me know what you're talking about. The Squared Circle Digest name, or what are you referring to? Yeah, please hit that like button. And then also now, we were talking in the past about the banned words wrestler and wrestling, but the name of the company has 3-word wrestling in it. Makes no sense. Yeah. World Wrestling Entertainment. Yeah. But you can't say And it was banned from interviews and the announcer saying it. And again, I think it went with what we were discussing before because, it's got to be sports entertainment. It's got to be, you don't want it to be wrestling or something that can be thought or perceived to be more than what you're trying to say it is. And that goes back to the sport and entertainment side of it. The match quality and work rate has definitely improved. Cruz, I think the one thing they're doing is they're allowing these guys and gals to be themselves, to go out there and do longer matches. I mean, Theory and Dolph Ziggler had 18 minutes last week. I looked at the main event this week. They gave Edge and Damian Priest 18 minutes. Dolph Ziggler and who did he fight? Finn Balor. They went 12 minutes on TV. And again, 12 minutes doesn't sound like a lot, but on TV time, that's a lot of time, man, to go out there and have a match. And they're giving guys a chance to perform. And the other thing I've noticed too is if you watch WWE now compared to what it used to be, when Vince was doing it, a lot more false finishes. By that, I mean the 1, 2, and he kicks out. You're seeing a lot more of those intertwined into some of the finishes. I saw it a lot with the Dolph Ziggler Finn Balor match. I saw it a couple times with the Edge match. Even the KO Chad Gable match had a few false finishes to where you thought, the match is almost over and you see the kick out and the things like that. So again, it's one of those things where I think they're allowing them time to actually lay out a match and be that match. Is it always going to be, perfect? Hell no. MJF close coming back, excited. I believe, again, and I know Bully Ray and they were talking about it on the Busted Open radio, was that they're like, he's got to have something planned big for September 4th to move that match off of a pay-per-view and put it on free TV. The only thing I can think of, man, is MJF being involved and put into the match. I'm guessing it's got to be. I mean, because if not, I just don't know what they're doing. And we shall see. Wednesday night shall be interesting. Is the new Triple H style reflecting on the viewership? Yes, it is. Last night, Raw went over 2.0 again. 3 of the 4 weeks that Triple H has been, 4 of the 5 weeks now, it has been over 2. And they were only behind The Bachelor, who did a 0.71. Monday Night Football did a 0.61, and Raw did a 0.55. So it is it's showing. It's showing. People are tuning in and the ratings are going up. And then also for for SmackDown as well. SmackDown is staying right about 2.1, 2.0. So yeah, it is showing on some of those. Let me see here. Sorry, lost some of you guys. Terry said the problem with WWE before Triple H took over, you kept seeing the same wrestlers in the same match every week. Now you're seeing less of that now. Because the one thing with Vince McMahon is you get in his doghouse. If you're in his doghouse, you're screwed. And it was how he felt that week. And one of the things I like now, at least, again, maybe some of the stuff is being changed, but not everything, is necessarily being changed. Maybe something's being slightly changed. Whereas before, Vince McMahon would be like, I want Theory moved from second match to taking on, from second match taking on KO to the last match taking on Finn Balor. Well, now you got to find somebody to replace whoever was taking on Finn Balor and somebody who's going to take on KO, make it make sense and figure things out. That's why a lot of times in WWE too, things didn't make sense because they just had to throw things together to make it work for TV because they were trying to switch it on the day of the show. So this way, the way I'm seeing it now, it seems that, a lot of things are not as chaotic backstage. Now, is that going to change? 100% probably could. as they go and things like that. But right now, everything, again, it's the honeymoon period. When ratings start sliding down a little bit or things start changing, will they have to make some changes? We'll see how it does, how it adjusts. It's just like what they said. For instance, you want to talk, we talk Miami Dolphins all the time. It's like with Mike McDaniel. Right now, he's in the honeymoon period. Start losing some games, what's going to happen? That's going to happen to Triple H now. If ratings start going down, we're going to have to make some changes. Where are those changes going to be made at? But right now, man, he's hitting them out of the park. I don't know that he's necessarily hit a grand slam yet, but he's hit a couple 2-run home runs. And, again, I'm waiting for all indications are pointing toward, again, Sasha and Naomi returning. Bray Wyatt possibly now returning now that Vince is no longer in there. Jeff Jarrett has been relieved of his duties as live event coordinator. Road Dogg now has been brought back in, and he's running that as well. So Triple H is starting to, put his. It's gonna be all on Triple H, Stephanie, Tony Khan. The Vince McMahon, Band-Aid has been ripped off. This is all on them now. Let's see. Steve Chapman says, Frankie, I'm putting you on blast. You're calling for us to hit the like button, but you haven't hit it yet yourself. I'll be the first. Now it's your turn. Damn you, Frankie Fresco. That's a heel move right there, man. You're telling him to do it and you won't do it yourself. I hope that we have less false finishes after finishers. Yeah, it works out that way there, Cruz. It does. Frankie finally says he hit it already. We'll believe that after we see it. Raw's been good. Even the women's tag match was good. The one thing you're going to see with Triple H, and it's always been that way, is he's had a main focus on the women's division. Hell, in NXT, remember, it was him that with the Charlotte, Sasha, Bayley, Becky. I feel like I missed one. Those are the 4. And then there were some other ones too that were there at that time. Even Shayna Baszler, he had a hand in her as well. When you start looking at there, him and Stephanie have been big proponents of the women's division and not making them just, not the eye candy that Vince McMahon always wants. No, they're kick-ass athletes. Your Bianca Belairs, when you start looking at some of those, some of them are better than the male wrestlers, man. I'll watch Charlotte and Becky go at it for a while. Hell, Bianca Belair and Becky. There's sometimes where I'd rather watch some of the women go at it than the men performers. But that is definitely one of the things that I think Triple H and Stephanie harp on a lot is the women's division. And I think you're seeing some of that. They're putting focus on Bayley, on Dakota Kai, Io Sky. That group coming back has given them that antagonist group to start, getting the baby faces, Asuka. Although I think they need to change Asuka and get her more back into the old school Asuka spitting mist heel Asuka. I want her to come back as a heel. But even without her, you have, Bianca Belair, you have Alexa Bliss, you throw in, Becky Lynch when she returns, there's plenty to do in the women's division. Anthony said, as far as video name instead of Video Digest Circle, why not WWE Circle Digest or something like that? So people, when they search WWE, your video pops up. I have that in the description. I don't put it on the main. Maybe I'll put like Squared Circle Digest talking WWE and AEW in the title, Anthony. I don't want to call it WWE or AEW or anything like that. I like the Squared Circle Digest because it's talking wrestling. But maybe you're right. Maybe I need to add to the title and put talking WWE, talking AEW, so we can get those going on. Turned off some cornet to say hi and switch to you. Hit the likes, my wrestling friends. Derek, I appreciate you, my man. And so you're a cornet guy, Derek? All right. I think Vince focused too much on the casual fan, which is why he had the same guys do the same matches week in and week out. Cruz, I disagree with you. I think I think what they did was Vince had his favorites. And if you weren't in that realm, he wasn't going to give you his TV time. Vince has been doing it for so long that I almost felt like he ran into the thing now to where it's, he knew that he had, if I wanted you to be successful, I'm going to make you successful. But if I don't like you, you're not going to be successful. For instance, Bray Wyatt. He didn't like his look. So he took the guy who was probably the most creative damn guy in the company. And look what he did in less than 3 months. He had him, Alexa Bliss changed on him. And then he came on and said, "Oh, I'll come back, but I'll be a different Bray Wyatt." And he was gone. You took a gimmick that was money. Hell, on the merchandise side, it was freaking money. The mask, kids wearing the mask. You could have done those little damn stuffed animals. You tell me you don't put those in the shop, they're not going to sell? But no, he was in Vince's doghouse. And another thing, if Vince didn't create you, you're not going to get over. You're not going to get over with in Vince McMahon's WWE. Hell, look at NWO, man. And I get it. By that time, they were older. I understand that. And a lot of people wanted the Hogan yellow, the Hulkamania to come back. But he brought that back so he could be the one to take it apart. When you start looking at, hell, you had Shelton Benjamin, Cedric Alexander, MVP, Bobby Lashley. Those 4 guys could have been something, done something, the Hurt Business. Instead, they 3 weeks they gave them, and then they broke up and they started fighting each other. It's just, if you're not Vince McMahon's and you're not going to make him the money he thinks you can make him, you're in the doghouse. You're not going to get TV time. And if you get TV time, you're going to be the guy laying flat on your back, jobbing to Veer or Omos or whatever. I think what you're seeing now is a lot of relief from a lot of performers to go out there and do what they do and not have to worry about it. Frankie Fresco says, Johnny Gargano, for example, how long are they signing these ex-NXT wrestlers? So Johnny Gargano can go, though, man, Frankie. Half these guys would have re-signed if Triple H was there. Johnny Gargano let his deal expire because he didn't want to go up to the Raw roster and be freaking hammered by Vince McMahon. So he let his contract expire and he sat home for 9 months. Triple H took back over, reached out. There was always talk between Gargano, Candice LeRae, WWE. There's always been talk. There's been other feelers out for him. A lot didn't think he was going to come back until next year. But again, a lot of these guys in NXT trust Triple H and the vision that he has and the vision that he has for them. And that goes a long way because, again, a lot of these guys could have, again, if it's for the money, you sign so you get paid. But you have guys that really, care about their brand, their character. And at the time, remember, it went from you couldn't have a Twitch channel. They took away the revenues that these guys were making from their Twitch channels. They were killing them on TV. Why the hell am I going to stay in this work environment? For what? I'll leave. I'll let my contract expire. I'll go work for AEW where they'll kind of let me do whatever the hell I want to do. And I can run my Twitch channel and get paid more than what I'm probably making from WWE. Because let me tell you something now. If those Twitch channels weren't making money, Vince ain't putting the kibosh on it. He wouldn't care. He wouldn't give two shits about it. But some of those guys are making more money off of Twitch than they were making working for Vince McMahon. And C-Man, I agree. Happy to see Johnny wrestling back. I am happy to see him back, man. And dude, he got a good response from that crowd, the live crowd, especially when nobody knew. He wasn't advertised. He wasn't anything. They came back from a commercial break. The little face appears on the thing, Gargano, and the place, kind of, went a little crazy. I wouldn't say went all crazy, but they were happy to see him back. Let's see. Frankie says, I'm going to have to put Steve through a table, Sean. No problem. We lighting it on fire? We putting thumbtacks? What are we doing there? What are we putting Steve through? I heard CJ Perry might sign with AEW. Everything is pointing toward that, especially now with the Julia Hart thing. I feel like, Lana, CJ Perry, however you want to call her, I think you'll see her sooner than later showing up with the Redeemer. Do you think they're going to split the undisputed title so Raw can have its own champion again? I can see that happening more than them taking the belts from Roman. I could see them maybe having Roman defend one of the belts and somebody beating Roman for one of the belts. Or having Roman have to drop one of the belts or something, however they want to work it. But I could see that happening more than him dropping both belts. Let's see. Cruz says, makes sense. Steve Chapman, selfishly, I like the small group that we have here on the Big O Show. So many people on the chat. Your chat gets lost because everybody wants to get in there. Useless nonsense. Yeah, and that's also why we went to the Steve, I don't know if you were there, but we went to now where you have to be a subscriber to the channel now, so that people can't just jump on there, filter whatever they want to filter and just cloud up the thing. So that's one of the reasons we went to that as well. Dad, what's going on? Hey, wrestling fans. I'll try to say it in his voice. Let's see. Man, why Steve? Why I gotta be Junior, man? Damn. Do you see Triple H getting rid of the wrestling draft? Apparently, there was thoughts of the draft happening after Clash of the Castle. Now there's been some things said to where a lot of that belief is that is not going to happen. I think what you're going to end up seeing is, and I forget what did they call it when they had that thing where you could show up on any brand. I forgot what the hell they called it back then. But I think now what you're going to see is more of that. You're going to see some surprises on the show just to throw a little bit, like what the hell is he doing on SmackDown or what they doing on Raw. I think you'll start seeing some more of that. I don't think you're necessarily going to see a draft per se. I think you'll just start seeing guys popping up and then maybe not being associated to a brand. It'll just be a show and they can go, to on whichever show. They're not going to be designated to, was it the wild card cruise? I'm not sure. I cannot remember what the hell they called it. They had a thing where, certain people could show up on the card or on the other show or something. I can't remember what the hell. They had some stupid shit for it. But ultimately, I think what's going to happen is you're going to have Raw and you're going to have SmackDown, and they're going to have matches, and nobody's going to be necessarily assigned. Maybe the Intercontinental title will stay on one show, and the TV title, the US title on the other, and then of course the women's titles would be defended there. But I don't necessarily think you're going to have people necessarily like you're going to be Raw, you're SmackDown, you're Raw. It's just going to be, because also you could start throwing more things together and more, I don't want to call it, you can almost start blending together this, how Survivor Series, usually they go Raw versus SmackDown. You can start doing all that while the shows are going on. Now, even building up to, some angles, you can plant little seeds here and there, and things will make a little bit more sense as you get further down the road. Cruz says, come to think of it, your explanation makes the Vince renaming, rebranding NXT call-ups more understanding because he didn't create guys like Ciampa or Keith Lee. No, that's exactly what it is. I mean, hell, how do you take a guy, and I know Keith Lee got hurt during the COVID thing and everything else like that, but man, that guy was on fire in NXT. He comes up and nothing. Hell, Killer Cross, or what is he, Karrion Kross, was kicking ass in NXT. You bring him up and you put a freaking marble helmet on his head and you got him coming out looking like a jackass. I mean, dude, it's like you think we're stupid that we don't watch your other program, NXT. I get it. It doesn't have as many viewers as Raw and SmackDown, but that don't mean that we didn't watch this guy grow into the big star that he had become on NXT. Your NXT champion. Now he goes to Raw and now he's wearing a freaking helmet. And I mean, what the hell? He was the ass kicker. He's the guy, like what they did. The perfect thing was what Triple H did with him at SmackDown. Drew McIntyre coming out to confront Roman Reigns. Boom, he nails Drew. He throws Drew in the thing, beats Drew down. Then he turns, he just looks at Roman Reigns. Scarlett goes on the thing and puts the hourglass upside down and it starts trickling down. And he leaves. That's what that character should be. It's not a good guy. It's not a bad guy. You don't know what the hell's going to happen with him. That's the things that leave something for the fan to make their own creation inside their head. That, it doesn't have to all just be, black and white, A and B. It's not all that way in wrestling, man. Leave some shit to the imagination. Then people will follow. People will watch it because then, they start. Hell, what was the one thing that they did in AEW when everybody, or was it WWE and everybody? Oh, no, it was WWE. I'm sorry. It was who was going to be Brock Lesnar's opponent at Madison Square Garden. And everybody's throwing all these names out there and WWE's getting all this traction on it. And then what the hell do? It's theory. They never said it was going to be some big blockbuster. They just threw out there who's going to be the opponent for Brock Lesnar. And they let wrestling Twitter and WWE Twitter and everybody else go crazy with it, coming up with all these crazy ass things. Oh, they're going to bring Bray Wyatt back. Oh, it's going to be this guy. Oh, they're going to bring this guy in. It was theory. And everybody got mad at WWE, and it's like, they never said anything. All they said was, who's going to be the opponent? Then everybody else started running crazy because they allowed people imagination to build up stuff that wasn't there. That's when wrestling to me is good, because then it's not just like, oh, I'm watching this guy because I watched him get beat by Veer in 15 seconds, so I know he's not going to win the title here tonight. Or the thing that they always did, the contender match, right? Because if I beat the champion this week, next week I get to wrestle him again, and then I lose. But I beat him last week, but this week I can't beat him because now the title's on the line. All that stupid shit to me is ridiculous. If you want to make a contenders match, then put two contenders against each other. The one that wins gets to fight the champion. You don't fight the champion, beat the champion, and then that shit don't work, especially when you do it every week. C-Man telling me something. I don't think you're going to see DIY back together. I don't think you're going to see that together. Sean, I watched Raw last night. I hadn't seen Raw in years, and I was pleasantly surprised. The matches last night were good. I liked the AJ Styles, Bobby Lashley team. Main event was good. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting too, because what they did basically was, because AJ Styles and Miz are kind of feuding, and Ciampa and Bobby Lashley, and you got that whole thing, they were able to make that a good little tag team match, and all of them hit their marks. I mean, it was a very good match. And of course, they're all very good. So it's one of those things, man, Tony. It's honestly right now in WWE, it's like a perfect storm, man, because they've had the freaking talent. All this, it hasn't been the talent, it's been the environment. And now that environment has changed. If it stays that way, I mean, it can build up to something great, man. It could really. I'm not saying. I think where they're at now, number wise, is where they're going to stay now. I'm not going to say, oh, it's going to be back up to the Monday Night War numbers. Never. You're never going to get that. Too many damn ways to watch TV and everything now. You're not getting those numbers anymore. You know, so, but I think it's definitely a very, to steal a Cruz word here, reinvigorated mid-card, as he's saying here, but also a reinvigorated crew of workers, and you're seeing that, and they I think they're not worried about that. Oh, if I make a mistake, I'm going in the doghouse and I'll never get out of it. You know, so it's one of those things now where I think you're seeing a lot of, I guess, a feeling of freedom, a feeling of, hey, you know what, I can go out there and I can make this work and not have to worry about getting in a doghouse. Will there be a reinvigorated mid card like the 90s, early 2000s? I hope so. And I think you're starting to see a little bit, but again, it goes back to where, you know, when Vince was in charge, he had the guys, man. It was the main event guys, because those are the guys that people pay to see, man. Unfortunately, you know, back in the day, I think, you know, and you know, again, this is, you know, maybe early, you know, WWF, NWA days. You know, you might have, you know, your favorite wrestler, Junkyard Dog, and you're going to watch him, you know, on the mid card and things like that. A lot of that broke away until the Attitude Era. Then I mean, think about, and again, I don't even necessarily know that it's mid card. It was just they were so goddamn top heavy that you had basically a main eventer, and on a pay-per-view, you could have a main event talent in every freaking match. They were so loaded. And then flip over to WCW. I just think, you know, it's putting the spotlight on the talent, but then also the talent being able to deliver. You know, when you look back at the Attitude Era, you know, Stone Cold, Triple H, Rock, Undertaker, Kurt Angle, Edge, Christian, the Hardys. I'm not putting them in the main event area, but I'm saying when they were doing those matches, they catapulted themselves up into the main event because of the TLC matches, the Dudleys. When you had those style of matches, I mean, what the hell? Jericho, I mean, dude, Guerrero, Benoit. I mean, just thinking about that now, the mid card were basically main eventers as well. And then you switched over to WCW when they had NWO and 67,000 people in that group. They were all main event type guys as well. So I don't know. It's putting a spotlight on the guys, getting back to that. And I think you're seeing that with the Ciampa, the Miz, what they're doing with Dexter Loomis, right? Some of those guys are starting to get, you know, airtime. I like that they brought Ali and Cedric Alexander out as a tag team. You know, you're starting to build up some of those guys to become that mid card. Is it going to happen overnight? I don't think so, because a lot of those guys have been beaten down so much. You've got to build some of them back up to make them believable mid card talents. Ricochet, I watched him 5 weeks in a row get pounded by Gunther. You know, you don't see him the same because they just kept feeding him to Gunther. And it's like, okay, now what? But they brought him back out. They put him in that match. He looked good. You start seeing the building back up. It's how you put them in matches. You can't put guys against Veer and Omos, have them lose in 10 minutes or in 2 minutes, and then expect me to believe that they're capable of being a mid-card guy. Now Triple H, everybody is you know, on solid ground and solid footing. They made the U.S. title start meaning something. They made the Intercontinental title start meaning something, right? They showed the history of the titles. They're starting to put spotlights back where it needs to go. And to me, that's a good start. That's a good start. And you're going to see some of the NXT talent jump up, I'm sure. Oh, it was, yep, okay. You were right. The wild card rule was right, Cruz. So you were right there with that. I believe it was you that said wild card rule. Yeah, it was the wild card rule. So you're right, Cruz. Thanks, C man. Appreciate that. So it's just a matter of putting time into the mid card. Vince didn't. If you weren't making him money and you weren't at the top, he'd give two shits about you. I'll bring in Brock Lesnar and I'll sell out stadiums. I'll bring in Goldberg and we'll sell out stadiums. I've got Roman here, and then we'll figure out the rest. And that's what he did. And it worked. Let's see. Sean, they wasted Aleister Black too. Yeah, Terry, 100%. It's a guy I thought, I was like, when he went up from NXT, I was like, here we go. What? I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, at least now in AEW, you're seeing what he can do. I mean, he's a little injured right now, but you're seeing him with Murphy and Brody there. So, it's one of those things to where the one thing that I will say with AEW is they've allowed a lot of freedom, but I think they allowed too much freedom. And on NXT, by the way, just so anybody not, Dexter Loomis just showed back up with Indy Hartwell. And if you remember what they were running before was the Dexter Loomis, Indy Hartwell. She was on the apron pouting, and Dexter Loomis showed up, and now they're kissing in the ring. We'll see what happens here. I don't know if anything else is going to happen, but it looks like they're reuniting, so that's a pretty cool thing. We'll see if Dexter, or maybe if they change, but it looks like now Indy might get a little bit of a push. I never understood why she didn't get a bigger push than what she has going, but we'll see what happens here. So that's interesting to see. Again, a guy they've been showcasing in Raw shows up on NXT today. You've been seeing it a little bit. Apollo Crews kind of rebranding himself on NXT so that he can come back up. You saw Ricochet do it. You saw some other guys do it as well. So looks like that's kind of going to be the thing now. They go down to NXT and then go there. Did you hear a fight broke out in the crowd in the Jags Steelers game and the fans are chanting AEW? I'm sure. Was it in Jacksonville? Because that's where the AEW stadium is. The one they call home is the other stadium right there. For WWE is a change in the culture. You're right. But it has to stay, I don't like using the culture word unless it stays for a while. Right now, it's a change in the environment. We'll see if it becomes a culture. Not sure what just happened here, but Dexter Loomis just got arrested. So we'll see what happened. He gave Indy a picture, and now she's looking at it, and I'm not sure what it says. Hold on, I'm sorry. I'm trying to read this. It says, "Goodbye, Indy. I love you." That's what it said. So apparently, Dexter Loomis is leaving NXT, and he's going to Raw. Imagine that. I'm not a fan when ex-wrestlers start to spread more rumors about trouble behind the scenes, like Conan saying other wrestlers in AEW are not happy with the bookings. A lot of them are saying that for clicks, but also a lot of them have got guys there that, they probably know. And my understanding is there's a lot backstage right now in AEW that, again, is it overblown? Probably 100%. But it's the same thing that I said before is you can keep signing all this talent, but at some point you're running out of hours. And yes, you can put some guys on Dark and Elevation and all those shows, and because they're professionals and they're getting paid for it, they're going to go and do them. Are they happy? No. TV time is what you're trying to get to as a pro wrestler. You want to be seen on network TV, not on the company's YouTube channel. So it's one of those things to where Frankie says DMD. Yeah, but how many times has she been on Dark? And then guess what? She's only on Dark today because she's on Dynamite tomorrow. Same with Kylan King. That's how they rotate that. When they're going to fight each other on the next night, they had them fight on Dark or Elevation to show how good they are. So now it builds them up to fight on Wednesday night. So if you watch it, and you're like, hey, that Kylan King's pretty good. Oh, she's on Wednesday night against DMD. Oh, I'm going to tune in. So it's some of the ratings thing there too as well. But it's one of those things to where, look, man, you think if they told CM Punk he's going to wrestle on Dark, you think he's going to be okay with that? Hey, Punk, we're going to hold you off TV for 4 weeks. You're going to wrestle on Dark. Bryan Danielson, hey, we're gonna keep you off TV and put you on Dark. Come on, man. And there is talk that supposedly they're supposed to be getting a couple more hours of TV. We'll see. We'll see if Discovery gives them more. I hope they do. I hope they do, and I hope they repackage Rampage to something. I would rather Rampage honestly be like a Tuesday Night Titans show where it's Tony Schiavone and them sitting at a desk and they show highlights, or they have an interview show and you bring somebody out. Because the Rampage now is just, you record it and they give you, I had the results for last week's Rampage. Why am I going to watch it? Wrestlers like Sonny Kiss, Sammy Hobbs, why would they get upset of being in Dark? Frankie Fresco, you realize that like half those guys that you just named busted their ass when AEW started, worked through COVID to have, you know, WWE release wrestlers, they get signed, and now you go from being on TNT every week to YouTube. I mean, come on. If you're a professional and you're doing, I'm doing everything you've asked of me, but I don't even get TV time anymore because you've gone out and you've spent millions of dollars on these other guys when the company wouldn't even be what it was today without some of these guys being there. AEW was built on the guys like Cody, Sammy Guevara, MJF, Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, Hangman Page. I didn't name any ex-WWE guys yet, have I? What do you see on TV every week? CM Punk. Well, Moxley technically helped build AEW because he was there before it started. So I won't throw Moxley as a... So Moxley goes to the AEW side because he was there from day one. But I mean, you see Miro, right? Malachi Black. Let's go down the line. I mean, CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, Claudio, William Regal. I mean, at some point it gets to a where you're going to say, all right. And then also those guys that busted their ass to help build up, half of them are just getting their contract ran out. Thank you for your help. I appreciate it, but we're not going to re-sign you. I mean, at some point, you know, it's one of those things to where you want to talk that you're there for the wrestlers, but then when it comes to, you know, push and pull, you're doing the same damn thing that you're just hiring the high price talent that'll bring. And they're not bringing anything, by the way. Their ratings haven't gone up. The only one that's done anything and the last couple of weeks hasn't done anything would be CM Punk. CM Punk, when he was on, would take it up to a 1.1, 1.0. Last couple of weeks, nothing. I think this week might get a bump because of MJF, and I think MJF would be a thing. Hell, Wardlow hasn't even been on TV in freaking 3 weeks. To me, I would be pushing that goddamn guy to the moon. He's your TNT champion. That TNT title should be defended every week. That should be like a TV title. Dynamite would be even better if it had an extra hour. Like, no, Tony, no. No more 3 hours. No more 3 hours. You get 2 hours and then give them 2 more hours on a different night. I'm not saying add an hour to nothing. I think right now, if Triple H could take the hour away from Raw, he probably would. Not lying either. I think he probably would, because it gets a little bit monotonous. And if you, there's a, where did I hear? I think it might have been in Gerwitz's book. I was listening to Gerwitz's book on audiobook, but WWE, what they normally did was they booked for the 10 o'clock hour to be the 9 to 10 hour to be when everything happened, because they noticed by ratings that most people would click off after 10:15. So nobody would be there for the main event. So they started putting more of the stuff in the 10 o'clock hour. So no way more, no 3 hours. But I don't want the taped hour either. So, but don't you get paid either way? And how many people watch Dark? Are there numbers out there for Dark? No, I mean, people watch Dark, but again, sponsors, brands, you know, it's more to the brand of a pro wrestler than just being on. If you're seeing me every week on TNT and now you see me doing a Slim Jim commercial or whatever, or a Degree commercial or something like that, you can sell more of yourself out there. You know, hell, I mean, some of these guys make more money on the podcasting end of it than they make wrestling. And as you said there, they're on the indie shows. Yeah, but at the same time, no, this is where I'm saying with AEW. Do you see any WWE guys doing indie shows? No, they're all making money for WWE. And if WWE is putting them on an indie show, I guarantee you they're getting something out of it. It's a damn business, man. And to me, sometimes I look at Tony Khan and I don't think he runs it like a business. How do you own 2 companies and you use the Ring of Honor? You say Ring of Honor, when he first bought it, he said it's going to be more of a developmental, kind of like an NXT type thing for AEW. FTR becomes your tag team champions. Claudio Castagnoli becomes your heavyweight champion. How the hell is that a developmental? And then they get TV time on your AEW show. I've seen the Ring of Honor and the AAA titles defended more than I've seen the AEW tag titles defended. And that's on your damn TV show, AEW. So you got to me, business-wise, if that's an AEW program, everything on there is going to be AEW. Or making AEW money. And those guys have in their contract where they can go and do independent bookings. Because that's what AEW did on the tier pay. You got paid for your experience and everything else, and on their tier pay, so they could go out and do independent bookings. But then again, if I'm an independent, you know, I'm a independent performer and I go to an indie show and I've been treated like crap on AEW, or I haven't been on AEW TV, you think I'm saying anything about AEW? Do you think I'm talking good about AEW? I'm not saying anything about AEW. They ain't done shit for me. I'm going to talk about Sean Allen. I'm going to talk about Sean Stanley. When asked about AEW, I'm like, hey, everything's good. Da, da, da. Here's Sean Allen. 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 Because an independent performer, it's all about Sean Allen. And until, to me, Tony Khan can figure that out and how to make more money, like what Vince McMahon does with his guys. Think about it. Think about what they do with guys in commercials and stuff, man. When they get sponsors to come in, their WWE superstars are doing those spots. You think Vince McMahon ain't making money on that? Vince McMahon said, okay, Rock, you can go to Hollywood, but your first 4 films, I'm going to be an executive producer on. So WWE is going to make money. That's a business. That's treating it like a business. Sometimes with me, with Tony Khan, it's, hey, I got 2 action figures. What the hell am I going to do this week? Oh, let's go. And he just sits there at his desk and he's like, hey, you know what? This figure against this figure, perfect. Because you should be elevating those guys to make money for your company. Is it always going to be roses? No. But if you're paying those performers what they're worth and they're getting something and it's a win-win company and performer, then you're doing right by them and the business. But the AEW numbers, let's see. What are your thoughts on Braun Breaker? I love it. I love Braun Breaker. I love him, especially now that he's actually, buying more into. In his promos, he came out and he's like, "What's going on? What's happening with the dog pound and things like that?" I love the fact that he's bringing more of. I don't like. I mean, I get it that he wanted to be, his own name, and also I think Scott Steiner has the rights to Steiner, and he probably wouldn't sell it to WWE. So, but that's one of those things. I mean, and I go back to the whole thing with Cody. Remember, WWE owned Rhodes, the name. That's why Cody was Cody for the beginning of AEW. And probably the same thing with, Scott Steiner probably owns that name, which is why Vince, again, Vince wants to own names. Why? Because now he owns that gimmick. You're that, he owns that property. Anything Braun Breaker, WWE owns. So again, it's a business, man. And that's the part to me that I feel like sometimes, to me, AEW feels so a little bit lower down because it's almost like the nuts are run. What is the thing? The nuts are run the asylum. The crazy ones are run the asylum. That's kind of how I feel about AEW at times. Let's see. Just like Sean's talking about AEW is great talent, but not getting pushed. Here's two names that should be getting pushed: Scorpio Sky and Ricky Starks. Yeah. Ricky Starks would be one of the guys, definitely. And Scorpio Sky should have been pushed more than what he has been. Maybe AEW numbers will increase again once basketball comes back and it gets pushed. How's that? Once basketball comes back, guess what happens? Usually they get moved around. Depending if AEW, if they do some Wednesday games this week on TNT, again, they usually do Tuesday and Thursday. But at the basketball season, and they say, hey, we can do better numbers on Wednesday as well, and they add Wednesday to the list, what do you think is going to happen to AEW? Going to be bumped to Saturday at 6:05, Saturday at 8 o'clock, or whatever else. That's what happened this year during the playoffs. They weren't on one Wednesday during the playoffs. So, I mean, I don't think it helps, which is why they actually ended up pushing them to TBS. But now TBS is going to have hockey. Again, man, it's one of those things to where, and I don't know that AEW is giving the numbers right now to where they're going to be like, you know what, you stay there. Whereas Raw, if you're giving me a 2 every month, you're probably going to stay there. I'm not going to put, anything in that spot because nothing I put in there is going to give me those numbers. But you can't compare AEW and WWE. WWE is a powerhouse of a company that got way more money. Everyone at the end wants to go to WWE. You can't I'm not comparing AEW, WWE. What I'm saying though is you can use some of that business model though. It's a proven business model. Why? I get it that you don't want to be like WWE with the TV production and all that stuff, but why would you not use that business model that's worked for 50 something years? And again, I get it where Tony Khan says, hey, I want to give guys, then do that, add that to that business model. I'm not saying you got to, A to Z be the same business model, but that business model makes money. So if you want to add healthcare and you want to do all this stuff for the guys and gals, then do that. But why not take what's working? You're trying to reinvent a wheel that doesn't need to be reinvented. I'm not saying go and be what WWE is. But my God, for 50 years, They've been what you want to strive to be. So why would you not take some of that business model? What? Because I'm gonna be different and show you that pro wrestling can work on YouTube. So you know what WWE did? WWE made their own their channel. You know what they do now? They cut up their Raw highlights. Do you know that the Johnny Gargano thing already over 1 million views? So they're already beating AEW at their own game on the digital side. So I'm not comparing the two, but what I'm saying though is there's a business model there that makes money. If you want to make tweaks to that, then you can do that. But to try and reinvent the wheel because, this way that way worked. Maybe you didn't like the way the pay scale and everything else, and you want to work on some of that stuff, then so be it. But to sit there and try to reinvent the wheel and what works and what doesn't work, come on, man. Come on. Wrestling is better when wrestlers are involved in multiple rivalries. WWE is headed back to being the premier. Well, I mean, listen, Big Nick, South Florida accountability. They've look, you may not like WWE. They've always been the premier company. I mean, they are head and shoulders above, however you want to look at it. They are the company. Again, you can book guys in multiple rivalries and it works as long as you do it properly. And we'll see how everything works out. But I agree with you. I think it's again, as I say all the time, it's refreshing. It's refreshing to watch. I watch 3 hours of Raw now, and I don't want to poke my eyeballs out. If I was a wrestler, I would not allow WWE to have the full rights to my brand. It's like in soccer. A lot of those guys try to keep their rights for their brand. Yes, but there's also a reason why they change your name. There's a reason you don't usually get to have CM Punk when you come in. There's a reason you're not Terry Bollea, you're Hulk Hogan. There's a reason Ultimate Warrior changed his name to The Warrior legally, because you can't own real names. You can't own names that are their legal names. You can't own those. But I can own Braun Breaker. I can own Aleister Black. Can't own Adam Cole. Can't own Kyle O'Reilly. Can't own Bobby Fish. Roderick Strong. Can't own them. Keith Lee. Nope. But that's why they don't wrestle that's why they don't use their real names. That's why they're given characters. Because they can own that character. That's how it works. If you don't like it, then you don't sign the $300,000 a year contract. So there's ways around it, but I mean, you're not going to make that money anywhere else that you're going to make with WWE. And then also, if you stay with WWE, of course, what happens? Why won't I get back in the studio? All right. Sorry about that. I hit the wrong button and I guess I disappeared. I actually went away from the stream. So I apologize there for that. Apparently they don't want me talking about, legal names and things like that. So we'll stay away from that. But no, but the thing with wrestling is, you go in and you have a character. But also, here's the one thing too, is, WWE is pretty good on, I'll use MVP. He wrestled down here as Antonio Banks. He wanted to get in WWE. John Laurinaitis told him, if you can come up with a character that we can make money on, I'll sign you to a contract and send you to OVW at the time, which was their talent, which was their developmental territory. So he came up with a character, a cross between Terrell Owens and, you know, everything else that was going on at that time in sports and culture. And he came up with Montel Vontavious Porter, MVP, the highest paid, you know, contract ever in SmackDown history and everything else like that. MVP came up with that. MVP is still that, you know, he left and he was MVP because that was his character. You can come up with characters, and then also sometimes they'll let you leave with the things, but most of the time they don't. That's why when you go to a thing, you'll see formerly known as, you know, whatever, you know, Braun Strowman in WWE or whatever, EC3. You know, there's things that, you know, that you can do. You can work around it, you know, but once you get that notoriety of being in the WWE, when you go on the independent, you can make a pretty good, decent living as long as you're pretty good at what you do. Because once you've been in WWE, then you can sell pictures. You can, you know, you can do autograph sessions. You go to the Comic-Cons, you're paid to be there. And then you're not only paid to be there, but you could sell your stuff that's there as well. And usually at the cons, when you're there, you sell whatever the going price is and use $25 a picture. So, I mean, think, you know, you can add up, you know, especially if you've, you know, been there and done some stuff. Did I watch the Edge documentary? I did. It was pretty good, although I like the DX documentary more. Karen, I agree. I mean, but the DX, I think, was a different time, and they're a different feel. DX is more like I mean, a lot of people grew up on that, man. The crotch chop and all that stuff. That's what people grew up doing, and it's one of those things where I think the Edge one hit me harder because, like, Edge didn't have that swan song, right? He wasn't, I mean, he's getting it now, 9 years later. He's kind of, but he wasn't able to go out on his own terms. It was kind of like, you know, he won the title, he kept the title, and the next night he had to retire. It's one of those things like when you watched everything he went through, and then also, you know, talk about when he was there, when he first came in, his first opponent, he knocked out cold, doing a flip over the top rope in his first match. And he's like, oh boy, everybody's going to think I'm dangerous to work with. And then he goes and he does TLC matches. And then guys in the back still don't think he's tough enough. I mean, the guy's falling off ladders and he's spearing guys off of the belts on the top. And it takes the match with Mick Foley to make him tough enough in the back. It's just one of those things, man. It's so odd how guys are looked at in the back. And again, this is a different time. This is a different time where you had to earn, you know, that backstage, you know, there's a reason The Undertaker, you know, had a backstage presence. There's a reason, you know, all these guys get backstage presences. And it's one of those things, man, to watch what he went through and to have his career ended not on his terms, and then now to get a second chance. That's pretty cool, man. Sting probably only one to keep his name through various promotions. Yeah. But I think at this point, it's like once he, you know, I remember when he was with the Blade Runners, it was him and the Ultimate Warrior. He was Sting then. I can't remember what the Blade Runner, what Ultimate Warrior was. And then he went with Eddie Gilbert because the Warrior signed with WWE. And Sting stayed with Eddie Gilbert, and then he went through NWA and WCW, and the rest is history. Have a marketable character and then keep the rights. If you can keep the rights. Again, it's one of those things, man. Like a lot of those times, man, they're not going to let you keep. There's very few Adam Coles. You know, there's very few of those. Even look at Karrion Kross. He's Killer Kross in Independence. When he gets signed by WWE, he's Karrion Kross. So you can do things like that, but it's very hard to necessarily, you know, keep the rights to everything. It's tough. I mean, hell, Cody Rhodes couldn't even use his last name Rhodes because, again, his last name is Runnels. Rhodes was the wrestling name. Vince McMahon owned it. Then he let it expire, and Cody was able to get his name back. And now Cody works for the guy who he destroyed and made fun of in the first AEW pay-per-view. I can't wait to see how that's going to go. Question, does AEW do the same thing as WWE of keeping your character name? Frankie, you know what? I don't believe that necessarily all of it is, unless it's a character, because a lot of them have AEW did it differently where they let a lot of these guys have creative control. That's what WCW did. And you saw what happened there. So Vince even kept the yes. No, that was an agreed upon mutual thing. Daniel Bryan did not want to bring the yes over because Bryan Danielson didn't want to bring that over because that was Daniel Bryan, not Bryan Danielson. Bryan Danielson's always been the American Dragon. The American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. The yes character was Daniel Bryan. So there was a mutual, I mean, he still had the yeses going, but he was not going to be the one to instruct the fans to do. He did his sideways strut down, but he didn't do the all the way down. I think he held him up a couple times like this, but he wasn't doing the yes to provoke. And it was one of the things that was agreed on mutually with Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan and or Bryan Danielson and Samoa Joe are interesting because a lot of them, they weren't allowed to work because of concussions and injuries in the ring, and Vince wouldn't necessarily let them go. So they let them go, and then they went to AEW. Now they're wrestling, working. I think everybody imitated DX care. Everybody did. I remember Triple Threat Tag Team TLC match in Edge, Christian, the Hardy Boys, and Dudleys. No one should question it. I know, man. Any of those guys, dude. Any of those guys that, if you do a TLC match and you're questioning my toughness, you get out there and do a ladder match. Just do a ladder match. Don't even put the tables and chairs involved. Just do a ladder match. Take the bumps off the ladder. It's not fun, man. Not fun. All right, guys. Thanks for being here today. Tony, Karen, Frankie, Fresco, Big Nick. Appreciate you. Dad, Terry, appreciate you. Cruz, appreciate you, my friend. Where we had Steve Chapman, the one, the only. Derek, appreciate you jumping in. Anthony A, appreciate you as well. I appreciate you all, man. What am I saying? I appreciate everybody. And Frank A, Fresco. Yes, catch us tomorrow. Remember, 3:30 or 3 o'clock tomorrow. Sorry, 3 o'clock. We got the Dolphins in the morning when they work with the Eagles. So give me a follow if you can at Sean_Stanley11. And in the words of the great Gordon Stoley, so long from the Sunshine State.
If you're a Miami sports fan, then there's only one store to go to, and that's Caneswear at Miami Fanwear in Davie. They're your one-stop